conversation. How you been, brother?
Really good. Really good. Google just wants to take over the world, and I've done my best to try to avoid that. So I had to reinstall all the Chrome and all that stuff.
Hey, it's all good, man. You know what we were talking about? I was just actually just bringing up the fact that you played a really profound impact on our business when we were getting ready for this competition right here. I don't know if you remember this one, but this was arguably one of my favorite competitions. Was Team USA versus the world.
Yep.
And check you out right here. I got you right here. Look at you go.
God, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
You remember that one?
Yep.
And so, dude, I was just saying that. Remember, we were driving in the car. I brought this up last time about how you really made a big impact on me about learning how to delegate and whatnot. And so before you got here, I was just talking about you a little bit, brought that up. But let's talk about this real quick. So do you remember getting chosen for the first ever Team USA and what that experience was like? What was that like? Because they don't really have that anymore, you know?
Well, what was interesting, it was, there were team events at that time. Like obviously the CrossFit Games had the Affiliate Cup, I think that they were calling it at the time. And they had a few different iterations of the team event at the CrossFit Games. But this is kind of the first time that we started seeing synchronized events. So yes, like the ones we're looking at right now, that was like you and I performing as individuals against Team Europe.
Right.
But
or Team the World. Remember that?
Yeah, Team the World. Yeah, you're right.
And then it says Team Europe. I don't know. Anyways.
And then after a little bit of, as this competition kind of progressed, we started doing that synchronized stuff. And I remember thinking, oh man, this is Dave's new idea of how the team events are going to go in the CrossFit Games. And sure enough, I mean, we've seen it year after year since then that, there's some element of a synchronized component to the team, which I really liked because it showed that you and your team were on the same page as a whole and not just a bunch of individuals that had certain strengths and weaknesses. So I thought this was a really cool part of the first invitational.
Yeah.
But even aside from that, man, like just the ability, the recognition of representing, the USA on this event. I mean, we were blessed, weren't we? It was just
dude, it was so much fun. By the way, for those of you guys just jumping on, if you guys have questions or comments from Mr. Matt Chan or myself, make sure you guys post them up on that Facebook group or in YouTube, and we'll make sure we get right to them. I don't know if you remember this, but this for me stands out as like a really big memory in my competition career where not only was I extremely proud, because at the time, remember when they invited people for Team USA, it was like they were looking at like kind of your bulk of work, and they were saying, hey, this was like a big deal for me. I remember when we went over there, it really meant a lot. And this was the first event that we competed in. And I can't remember who I was up against, but he was smoking me. And then this happened. Did you remember this thruster, Chan?
Oh, so I remember you doing this.
Watch. Here we go. Watch. Oh man. I remember when that happened, it just gave me this spark. But anyways, I look back on these memories, man. There's something I'll remember forever for sure. So
yeah, it was just back in the day of throwing caution to the wind and just going as hard as you can for competition's sake. I mean, that's what happened to him. I don't even remember who that was, but
I don't even remember who that was, but man, that was a hell of a time. And we had a really good time, with Julie and Rich. And anyways, I was pulling that up. Something else I was pulling up that I was looking up some old school. I gotta show you this one. You're gonna love this one, dude. So I was pulling up some old school clips, and I was looking up Matt Chan, and sure enough, dude, I gotta show you this one. Check this one out.
Do you remember this embarrassing stuff out there?
I got to show you this one. Do you remember this one? So this gentleman, we're at a press conference. This is years ago, like in 2012, and this gentleman comes up and he asks about the chi. Do you remember him talking about what? Do you remember what?
From what I understand, there's something called chi. You can't give it away to everybody every day, or else you lose your chi, and then all of a sudden everything falls apart.
Do you remember when you asked about the chi? Can you hear the audio from this?
Yeah.
Dude, you were the only person to answer this. But basically, the question was, do you let yourself, go over the weekend with your girlfriend, whatever, or do you hold yourself back? And you're the only one who was prepared to answer that question. I found this on the internet. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, nobody, back in the day, I think everybody was afraid to speak in public, but you and I were doing a bunch of seminars and stuff like that, and we're confident asking or answering questions and adding a little bit of humor to it. So I think Dave got real sick of me answering any of those questions because he's like, all right, shut up. You're giving us a bad rap here.
Dude, so the whole thing was on there. It says basically Matt Chan schools the press was the title. So anyways, I was going through some great old videos, man. And so I'm glad to have you on. What's been new this last couple weeks? So you and I haven't touched base since a few weeks. Anything exciting going on? Done any hunting? Been out anything fitness related? What's been up?
Well, I've been kind of busting my ass at work, doing the firefighting stuff. And
I see the mustache is coming in strong.
Thank you. But I think you and I have something in common. We're both trying the animal-based diet here for the last bunch of days, right?
Yeah. How are you feeling?
Not good, dude. I'm not gonna lie. Like I actually yesterday, the 22nd was my last day of doing a strictly animal-based diet. I was getting headaches. I was super fatigued. I was cramping a ton, and I wanted to finish the 30 days, but it's the only. I tested myself for COVID multiple times, just thinking maybe that was it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, man. I think it was the animal-based diet. I just, you cannot push yourself and deplete your glycogen and stay hydrated and all that stuff. It's a really cool idea, but I think for me and probably for most people that do high intensity training, it might not be the best idea.
Well, let's talk about that. So for me, I started 15 days ago, animal based. And there's so many ways you could take this conversation, but for me, I did meat, eggs, and basically a little and some fruit. Basically, that's what I'm eating for the most part. And I got the inspiration from this concept of removing some of the leafy greens and nightshades and stuff to see if they helped me with inflammatory issues I was having with my knees and my joints. And I wanted to try something new. And that's what I've been trying for the last 15 days. I have not had the same experience as you. So what are you doing? Were you doing purely carnivore or were you doing something a little bit different?
No, I was doing strict carnivore. So
Strict carnivore. Okay.
Yeah. So, I removed everything outside of meat and eggs out of my diet. And literally for 22 days, didn't have a single carbohydrate. And I was using Element, those hydration sticks, and
Yep.
I must have had between 5 and 10 per day. I was drinking an extraordinary amount of water, but I could not stay hydrated. My calves were cramping, my hip flexors were cramping, my abdominals were cramping. I had these throbbing headaches towards the end there. And what I tied it all to is every time I would do any sort of anaerobic effort in the gym, I'd come back from it and I just have this throbbing headache for a little bit. I try hydrating and all that stuff. And eventually I think I just plugged myself into a hole where I couldn't get out of it. I had this headache for 3 days and I just said enough was enough. I gotta add in some fruit here.
Yes.
And immediately I felt better. My headache went away. The cramping was subsiding pretty rapidly. So the last bunch of days I've been following the precision nutrition guidelines to reintroducing carbohydrates into a animal-based diet. And they recommended starting with berries,
Yep.
plain Greek yogurt with high fat content. And that's where I'm at right now. So
I'm looking up this guy from Heart and Soil Supplement. I can't remember the guy's name, but it basically is like a plant toxicity. Well, can't really see it, but and it was like a list of and the toxics involved. I'm going off there where basically plant toxicity scale was what I started going off of, where it allows for some fruit, right? And then basically meat and eggs, which is very similar to what you were referring to. So, what's interesting is that for me, I've been wearing a continuous glucose monitor for quite a while. I actually took it off yesterday and I put it back on. But I found that extreme exercise, right? More anaerobic base. In particular, one that blended my brain with my body, shot my blood glucose levels to like super high, super high. And I wonder for a guy like you, because you're already so lean, if the carnivore diet didn't provide enough, basically you didn't have enough stored glucose or glycogen to perform. I mean, do you think that's what it was? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think over the 22 days that I stuck with it, I think I, with time, just depleted that glycogen level. And I actually reached out to Mark Bell because I know he's big on the carnivore diet right now. And he's also had quite a bit of experience with, not only carnivore, but just low carbohydrate diets in general. And I said to him, do you think that the depletion of glycogen is it also related to dehydration? And he sends me a little voice text that says,
oh yeah, of course.
He said, it's funny, what do you say? He said something like, brother, the word carbo, it also has hydrate on it. And apparently, I guess, I never really broke that word down, but yeah, I guess for every, molecule of glycogen, there's like 3 molecules of water or something like that. So you end up, when you deplete your glycogen, you also depleted quite a bit of your hydration. And I think that's basically where I was at the end of this. I could trigger it all down to one workout. I ran a 12-minute test for max meters and running. And at the end of it, I mean, I was giving my all. I was watching my heart rate. It was over 175. And afterwards, I was like, I've got COVID. I've got such a throbbing headache and my body hurts right now. And nope, negative. And then I started adding in, like you said, the fruits, and I started feeling better. So I don't think, for your audience that listens, I don't think that the carnivore diet is right for high intensity exercisers, CrossFitters, or whatever else that you're doing, because you're going to end up in the same boat that I am. And that's not even mentioning what it's doing to your blood work.
Well, so I'm very interested on that. So I'm getting my blood taken tomorrow. But to kind of back you up, like, so I'm eating animal based in the sense, like, I'm trying to avoid these toxic plants, but basically I'm eating meat, eggs, and some fruit. Not a huge amount, but I think enough to allow me to perform, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like if you had gone that route from the beginning, maybe you could have stuck with that for a long period of time. You think?
I do. I think that's a smart way to approach it. So if people are still looking to do the low carbohydrate part of that and get the benefits of getting insulin sensitive again and all that stuff, I would just start with berries and add them in around your workout before and after, and eat until you feel full, instead of worrying about limiting it to a certain number of grams. Because your body kind of tells you what it wants. And I'll tell you, it's been a really good experience, like just eating meat and realizing how full you can feel. Just based on animal fat and protein. And, luckily enough, because of all the hunting, we had an abundant supply of meat, and it was a lot of fun. But towards the end there, like the last couple days, it was just, it was more pain than it was worth. And I did do my blood work, and I've never had problems with my cholesterol. And my cholesterol went from 120, the LDL cholesterol, to 247
this is pre and post.
In 2 weeks.
This is why I like talking to guys like, I'm very curious for myself, right? So I've been wearing, like I said, the CGM has been really interesting for me because I see what exercise produces a quick blood glucose spike. But I think like testing the blood work is a really good thing to have a discussion about. And I think that having an open conversation about it is great. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm curious how you feel in the next couple of weeks. By the way, Bruno, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Much respect for you and what you represent in the cross world. I think basically talking to both of us and what we all do here. Had a question come in from David. Were you doing that when you were on your shift for wildfires? Did your fight or flight carry you through that if you were? So I think he was referring to basically like your energy levels, et cetera.
Yeah, so that big wildfire in the Boulder area, I was, working that as part of like the big response to that area. 1,000, I think it was 1,100 homes burned. We were there very early on scene and spent most of the day there. Luckily, I had not started the carnivore diet yet. This was probably about 3 days before I started. And, we didn't have any food out there, didn't have any snacks. We just had some bottles of water and some hydration sticks. And that's what I went on for about 8.5, 9 hours. And I felt great. And it's a testament to, the way that we train, being physically fit and taking care of your body, that you can stretch it out there. And I think I felt great. I think some of the guys I was working with, they were pretty fatigued afterwards, but everybody hung in there and kicked ass.
I love it, man. I love it. Got Carrie asking a question, which I think is interesting. Or excuse me, I apologize. It's Corey. Corey's saying, hey, peace with you guys. I know both of you have a lot on your plate between family, business, working on yourselves, traveling, competing, training. How do you balance things? I mean, I guess, Matt, kind of kicking that over to you. Your job is definitely different from mine, right? We own the company that does a variety of different things, but mainly it's all fitness related. And so I do have the flexibility in my schedule to be able to do certain things. Whereas for you, when you're on, you're on. And so how does that work being a firefighter and then also balancing obviously your relationships, but also your business with Train with the Win, Train for the Win?
Well, I think Jason, you probably do something that I do kind of like intuitively and maybe you take it for granted. Maybe, it just happens automatically, is you prioritize things in your life, right? For you, I'm sure your family is number one and your business is probably number two. So when it comes to booking up your schedule, those are the things that have to happen first, and they have to, occupy the biggest space in your head and on your schedule. For me, definitely my family is my wife and, my dogs and my parents and sister and all that. They're number one for me. And my job is number two. So working for both North Metro as a firefighter and Train for the Win, like you mentioned, Jason. Those are kind of my big priorities. And then another set of priorities I have that I kind of fill in the gaps with is getting outside and doing outdoor recreational stuff. I take training for granted. So getting into the gym for an hour every day, it's not even a priority. It's a thing that I do. But for a lot of people, I think that, they're not quite at that habitual state yet where they take that for granted.
Right.
So for those people, they probably have to prioritize things like exercise. But one of the big tricks that I try to do is I use a calendar, and I try to only book one major thing per month. So for example, Rogue just reached out and they asked if I would come do some video shooting with them. And that's my big thing that I'm going to do at the end of the month in February. So I try not to overbook and overextend myself, because those things take a lot of effort. They take a lot of your headspace. They take a lot of your time away. So overdoing that stuff can really turn into stress and unhappiness. And I want to look forward to those big things. So that's kind of how I do it. I basically can only do 12 major things a year, one a month.
Say no a little bit more often. I mean, I think for me, it's the same thing, right? You have your family, you have your business, you have your fitness, and getting an exercise is just part of my schedule. One of the things I've incorporated for a while now, which has been really helpful, is I do morning walks with my daughter every morning, and they're not long, but we just go in the garage and we turn on Gordon Ramsay as like a cooking show. And we watch it for 15 minutes as we walk, or I ride the C2 bike. She walks on the assault runner. And that's been a nice way to get in movement, but also some family time where it's just her and I. My son and I work out all the time together, go do jujitsu together, but her and I don't necessarily have that same thing. So that's a nice way that we've been able to get some time together. For those parents interested, if you don't have an assault runner and all that stuff, I get it. Just go out for a walk. It's a really nice way to kind of get the endorphins moving. And I actually physically see her mood and mine change, right? Because you wake up in the morning, maybe you, the quote unquote, woke up on the wrong side of the bed, but then all of a sudden after 10, 15 minutes, it could really change your mindset for the rest of the day. So that's something I've incorporated. I want to ask you, because you brought it up, you brought up Rogue Fitness. So I actually just got in a new reverse hyper. I was talking about it earlier before you jumped on. I'm a big fan of the reverse hyper, and I've actually just been getting in some new tools recently. So I'm wondering from a Rogue Fitness perspective, again, total tangent to this conversation, but what tools have you been getting lately? What type of equipment have you been seeing that you actually like outside the normal stuff? Like obviously you got dumbbells and barbells and this and that, but I've been buying some different stuff that what have you been getting that's kind of unique that you think people might be interested in?
Well, yeah, I saw that you bought a heavy bag and hung it up on your rack. That looks pretty cool.
So got a heavy bag, got some fat bells, got the multi-grip bench bar, got a safety squat bar, and got the hyper and some other sandbag type stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. So, I think it can't be overstated how important just the basic complements is that you already mentioned, like, barbell, bumpers, power rack, and getting your dumbbells. But because I have, you and I have had relationships with Rogue now or in the past, obviously, by working with them, they will hook us up with some stuff from time to time. And one of the things that I just got that I'm super excited for it to ship is I believe they call it the CT1, which is the Rogue cable tower. It's it's a single stack. I think it goes up to 300 pounds, and it's an adjustable tower. So you can take the cable exit point or pulley system, and you can start really high, or you can move it down to the ground. And as I've aged, I've found that I like more volume, but generally that volume comes in the shape of accessory work, which is mostly like bodybuilding or functional bodybuilding style exercises. That takes up like 15 minutes at the end of every workout. And I am extremely excited about getting this cable tower for a lot of those exercises. I've traditionally just used bands to mimic the use of a cable.
Because they're expensive. I mean, the cable tower, they're expensive. They take up quite a bit of room, but now they have it a little bit more stacked, right?
Yeah, but it's still, I think I spent $3,500 on it. And it is, I want to say that I saw the shipment weight was something like 700 pounds.
Oh, yeah. So, a little workout.
Yeah, it's got a big footprint. So it was a little bit of a battle trying to convince Cherie to allow me to put it into the garage because it is kind of pretty big. So I'm excited for that. That should ship this week to the house.
I'm gonna pull up one of these new hypers that I think. So speaking of which,
and the reverse hyper, man, like for the garage gym, I think that everybody should have one, especially the Scout. Yeah,
I was just okay. So I pulled up the Scout right here online, and that's
what I have at the house. I love it.
I love it too.
It doesn't need to be any more than that. That's all it needs to be.
So it's okay. So I again, we're obviously. I'm in the business of I want to make people fitter, healthier, feel better. And I think this is a great tool to incorporate at your home gym. So something I've been doing is I brought this up earlier, either back squatting and then supersetting it with this hyper, or sometimes I'll just go in there and do like 5 sets. And I don't know how you use it, but I have found that in particular, I mean, this has been, look at how it just like folds up right in the corner. I haven't taken mine down. So for anybody who's maybe interested in buying one of these, I haven't folded mine up. I just keep 55s on it. I find that's an appropriate weight for me. I don't put a lot of weight on it. So I have not folded it up, but it's pretty nice you're able to. How do you use yours?
So I generally do 6 sets, and I do between 20 and 25 reps per set, and I use a lightweight. So like this guy right here in the photo is just using 25-pound plates. That's generally, I'll use anywhere from 25 to 55-pound plates. Depending on how my back feels. So if I have a little bit of some aches or pains going on or any nervy stuff, then I'll use the 25s. And what I find is that with those high repetitions, the 20 reps for 6 sets, I just get a whole bunch more blood flow back there. And then I don't have any sort of nervy sensations or anything like that for the rest of the day. So not only are you building your spinal erectors and glutes up, but you're also getting some blood flow back there to reduce any of that, the aches and pains that you have. I mean, I don't know about you, Jay, but I wake up in the morning and my back's pretty stiff.
Dude, so I've been feeling a lot better utilizing the reverse hyper. So it sounds like you go more higher reps, like 25s, and you're doing more of the swing action. Is that what you're doing?
No, I actually control down
You control down.
until I get fatigued and I can't control it as much anymore, and then I start to allow it to swing.
That's super interesting, Matt. And the reason why I'm sharing that with you is like you and I have never talked about this before. I use it the exact same way, like exactly the same, but I put a little bit more load on. So I haven't done it with just 50 pounds. I normally do it with 100 pounds, which again isn't that much for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
But I normally start off resisting, but I can normally get about maybe, I don't know, 5 to 8 resisting. And then I go into that swing motion. So it sounds like you do similar, but you're just a little bit higher reps because you're at lighter load. And do you superset that with anything, or do you just do it by yourself?
Yeah, no, I do. I like doing that. So generally, I think of obviously the reverse hyper as a posterior chain exercise. So like
100%.
Spinal erectors, glutes, hamstrings, and I like to just mix it up with 1 to 2 extra exercises that target those same muscle groups. But again, I don't think of the reverse hyper as necessarily like hypertrophy work, even though it may be slightly. I think of it as more restorative work for the back.
Restorative work for the back. Got it.
Yep.
Got it. So, I mean, obviously we're both fans of the Scout Hyper. I think that from a size perspective, so what I was worried about when I bought it is I was worried that it was going to be kind of wobbly, right? Because it looks really small, but I actually think it's actually appropriate. It's maybe not as stable as like some of their bigger ones, but I don't think you need anything more than this Scout Hyper. So if you're in the market for a hyper, shout out to the Rogue, this one, because I think it's perfect.
Yeah. The one caveat I would put is maybe if you are a gym owner, I would maybe not buy the Scout for your gym, because it's not that it can't handle that sort of use. It's just like, buying, I love Assault, but like, it's like buying an Assault bike versus an Echo bike for a gym. I would always go for those Echo bikes because they can stand the abuse. They can stand people misusing them or abusing them. Whereas maybe the Assault or the Scout might not stand up to that same abuse.
Yeah. What's interesting is, for the Assault bike, we use their new Elite version is what we use at our gyms.
Okay.
And it's held up really well. So like the traditional one, I get what you're saying. The new Elite one, for anybody who hasn't tried it, it holds up pretty well. Obviously the Echo bike does too. So you and I, we can nerd out on equipment all day. By the way, anybody listening, if you have any questions in regards to equipment, what we use, why we use it, please feel free to put your questions in the comment box. Something else I think is an interesting conversation to have is about these fat bells. Have you ever used fat bells before?
Only at the Rogue facility. I've gotten my hands on them a little bit. They are interesting how it changes the center of mass, right? Isn't that kind of how do you use them?
So it's funny. I ordered in fat bell, and I had only used it once. I was at Kelly Surrett's house, and he had them, and I was like, I need to check these things out. And so I ordered in, I ordered in 253s, a 70, and an 88, thinking that like I don't know who I thought I was, but I got way too heavy of them. And so I ended up having to order in a 35 pounder because they're just, it's like doing a one-arm kettlebell swing, right? Like I thought that I could get away with these other ones, but I couldn't. So I would recommend for anybody interested in these fat bells, I have used them for single arm snatches. They've been really helpful. If you are interested though, I go a little bit lighter than you think. They get heavy pretty quickly.
Well, so explain to me why that's different from a dumbbell or a kettlebell then.
I guess I didn't think about it when I was buying it, right? So when I bought it, I looked at it as a kettlebell. So I was like, oh, I'll buy a 70, no big deal. But what I didn't realize, normally when I use a 70, I use 2 hands on it and I'm swinging it.
I see.
You know what I mean? So what I should have realized is that I was actually using one hand. So it'd be like the same as if I bought a 55-pound dumbbell, which is, or a 70-pound dumbbell. It gets heavy after a while. But yeah, the only caveat I'd say is for people who are interested, I would definitely stick with the dumbbells and all your traditional stuff before you start switching up to these fat bells, because they kind of have a tendency to kind of beat up your wrist a little bit, but they're a nice toy to incorporate. Do you practice? So we got Corey asked again, do you guys practice any breathing techniques in order to get more out of your training? I'll let you go with that, Matt. What do you think?
Yeah, just as an example, with running, I try to focus on my breathing as I run, so that every time I exhale on a step. So in other words, like, and Jason, I think you and I get this information from the same dude, Chris
Oh
Hinshaw.
yeah,
Shout
Mr.
out to
Chris
Chris.
Hinshaw. Shout out to Chris Hinshaw.
Yeah, he's been integral in me getting better as a runner. And one of the things that he's had me focus on is that every time I step, that's my exhale. That's my cue to exhale. If I'm going to be running at an aerobic pace, so in other words, low intensity, you want to breathe every 5 to 6 steps. So really low frequency of breathing. And then as you start to accelerate and run a little bit faster, you can move to a breath every 4 steps, and then anaerobic every 3 steps, so on and so on. But I have to admit, I've been doing ROMWOD now for, I guess, about a year, maybe a year and a half, and they incorporate quite a bit of breathing techniques in their, I guess it would be kind of like yoga, and I really enjoy that. And it makes me relax. It makes the time go a little bit faster. But outside of that, I haven't done actual breathing exercises in a bunch of years.
The Hinshaw conversation is really interesting. He came out to one of our gyms and he put our team through something, and what he was talking about was his breathing and the steps. And I'm sure I could look it up, but he has a very specific protocol, like you were talking about. And it was interesting to watch when people weren't able to keep up with the same cadence and their breath got out of whack. That was one of the first things he taught me. And so from a high level, when I think about breathing, and this is maybe isn't exact answer that you're thinking of, Corey, maybe it was a little bit more towards what Matt was saying, but for me, I visualize myself in workouts as if I was swimming. And I know that sounds weird, but when you swim, you have to be in control of your breathing. Otherwise, you guys have all probably been there. You're swimming in the middle of the ocean or wherever you're at. And if you get out of your rhythm, you could start really freaking out. And when that happens to you, you could then start thinking about how does that relate to your garage or your gym? And that's been very helpful for me. Finding my breathing rhythm in thrusters, finding my breathing rhythm in different things has been helpful, not to let my heart rate redline so it gets to a place where I can't return.
Yeah, that's you know what? Honestly, that's probably something that made you pretty successful as a CrossFit Games athlete, was understanding how breathing fits into each exercise. And I think that's one of those things that, as you become a more mature athlete doing CrossFit, you learn where you can breathe and where you can't breathe in certain exercises, or that, hey, I know that this exercise is going to cause my respiratory rate to go up because I have to hold my breath as I perform this movement.
Yep. Luis is asking, speaking of caution to the wind, I'm 44. I have injuries and recovered from. I'm definitely looking back and wish I could do that when I was 35. How have you guys hit that cautionary stage in your life, right? I lift and program smart for the long haul. It's a marathon, not a sprint mentality. What are your thoughts? I mean, I think, Matt, you've been probably more on this than I had in the past, because you didn't get into CrossFit. How old were you when you found the competition of CrossFit? Because I want to say it was 2008, right? Was when you competed first?
Yep, it was 2008 with you, right?
Yep. So
And
how old were you then?
I think I was 29.
Okay. So at the time you were, not old by any means, but 29, then you competed for the next, however many years, close to
a bunch
10,
of years.
right?
Yeah, almost 10 years. So, Louise, my experience has been much like yours, where I've had to decide, as I grow older, what are my priorities? Do I want to compete anymore? And obviously I had to set that aside at a certain point, because I just couldn't recover and I couldn't compete on a high enough level with my fellow competitors. So I had to make the decision that, this is, even though it was a lot of fun, it's kind of time to close that chapter of my life and really focus on fitness as a means of having a great life, and not necessarily equating to competition fit. So, there's days like yesterday, I really wanted to exercise. And like I was telling Jason earlier, that I just had this throbbing freaking headache. So Cherie said to me, she's like, you know what? That's your body telling you today's not the day. And even though I didn't work out 2 days in a row, I was just like, you're right. I need to be smart here and just kind of chill out. So today I plan on doing a light air bike workout, or a Concept 2 bike workout. And That's really what it comes down to, is making decisions on a day-to-day basis based on how your body feels. Whether today is the right day to push the go button or whether it's a good day to push the go slow button.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%. I mean, yeah, you and I were preaching the same thing. I think one thing that I've been focusing on more as I've gotten older is, nutrition, sleep, hydration. Those are things that I'm playing around with more. And I think that, cause I used to just, all throttle all the time. I still have a hard time turning that off in workouts. I still put in, kind of do that, but I've been paying a lot more attention to, like my mental clarity, my energy levels, how my inflammation feels. And typically a lot of that has to do with, what I'm eating, how I'm resting, and hydration. So those are all things that I've been paying a lot more attention to.
Yeah, I learned some valuable lessons early on from a couple really key partners I had, and one of them was a company called Restwise, and they taught me kind of like an all-encompassing way of looking at your recovery status and whether or not you're ready to train. And just as I've aged and look like Luis was 44, he's in the same boat. It's just one of those things that you have to, like you just said, look at your hydration. Well, I didn't hydrate well yesterday, so therefore that's probably why I have the headache. So I shouldn't push on the gas today. It's only going to make me more sore and more effed up for the next day. So be smart.
Hey, I gotta share something. I want to shift gears a little bit. Had to do it. So
Yeah, what a good looking gym. Can we go back and look at that for a second? Is that possible?
Maybe in a sec. As soon as I stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
So I am going to share my screen. This is a video for those of you listening of Matt Chan in his final competition, or not, well, for the win with Will Sutton.
Yep.
And I mean, tell me a little bit about this, because I mean, you got The Rock standing there, and I imagine you knew you were going to win before you won, because you were beating him. Here, I'll go back a little bit. You were beating him by a pretty decent amount right here. I mean, when did you know you were going to win? Was it right there?
Yeah, as soon as I got onto that platform to get that ball out of the cage, I knew I had a pretty good leg up on him, and as long as I played it cool and actually turned the key and didn't mess that up again, that I was going to do what I needed to do to take that title. Man, that was a lot of fun. I gotta admit, I haven't looked back at this in a while.
Dude, hey, I'm just trying to bring you a blast from the past. I mean, I remember watching this and I was so fired up with you. Ashley and I were just like, and then you see Cherie there. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, But tell me a little bit about this now that we have it. I love this platform because I can actually pull up videos, talk about things. What was it like? I know the experience was different. It was more of a TV show than this and that. But I mean, I mean, that moment right there, I guess for the type of activity, right? Short kind of sprint style, very small margin of error, right? Very, very small. Like if you go back here, I was watching when you guys flip over this thing, right?
Yep.
You flip it over and it doesn't land appropriately. So like look at these, like diving underneath these things. There's a lot of athleticism involved, but you're flipping over these things, right? And yours doesn't end right. And so how do you get your head back in the game when your competitor is such a short event and you have to redo that same little log thing? What's going through your head there?
Man, Jay, I mean, this is what makes CrossFitters good at the Titan Games, is that, we've had the experience of dealing with the adversity of competition where things don't go your way and, something happens that you weren't expecting. And just through a lifetime of competing in various sports, I think stuff that you and I probably take for granted is that we remain level-headed throughout competition. And, this was just another example of that. I think, as I was going through the Titan Games, there was a couple points in time where I kind of got shaken and messed up a little bit. But for the most part, it was just following my heart and doing the things that I knew I could do. And, let me just say this, like, as far as the Titan Games experience goes, being on that competition floor was the easiest part. The parts where you're sitting in front of a camera and kind of blowing yourself up a little bit.
Yeah.
There was a lot of acting in that. And that wasn't as easy for me, whereas it seemed like it was really easy for other people. But getting out on that floor and going against Joe Thomas and every one of my other competitors, that was where I thrived. So I was waiting for those opportunities to come around. And then when they did, it was just like tunnel vision. All I could see was just the task that was in front of me. And I knew where my fellow competitors were on the competition floor. I knew that I could beat them. I just needed to be confident and play my game. So
love it, man. Now are they coming back with another season, or I don't know if you're allowed? I mean, or I don't know. Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know either. I think the COVID stuff probably obviously sidelined a lot of that stuff and the ability to get together and film all that. Like for example, I know The Rock was filming Red Notice, which I think was released on Netflix just like maybe like 3 months ago. He was filming that while we were there, which was very early 2020, January, February 2020. So clearly the production of that stuff was put on a halt in order to, stay safe through all the COVID stuff.
Yeah. And so, you got a great example of kind of, at NC Fit, like one of my goals is to help people live. We kind of create this slogan, like live freely and fully outside the gym. That's like really, as I've gotten older, that's like my rallying cry, right? Like I want to help people live freely and fully, be able to go do stuff they want to go do, and also things they have to do. And for you had to go out there and go service a wildfire. It's not like a nice to have. That's a mandatory thing, right? Someone has to do that. Otherwise you have major issues. And so I'm wondering, from a fitness perspective, what do you see translate? Do you do anything specific for your firefighter work, or is it more just like, hey, I'm going to do kind of like this broad and inclusive fitness, and it's just going to translate right over? Is there anything in particular you do outside that scope? I was just wondering.
Well, yeah, of course. So, I mean, one of the things that I do with my programming, my exercise programming, is I try to periodize it, but I don't periodize it in the traditional way where you have like a mesocycle. Like, here's your year, and you're going to break up that year into several smaller goals that equate into a big macro cycle goal. Well, I don't compete, and neither do the people that I program for. We live life, and the way that I try to build my macro cycle, if you will, is what do I want to achieve this year? Every fall I want to go hunting. Every summer I like to go mountain biking and climbing. Every winter I'd like to go skiing. So when I design my programs, I design them so that I'm able to achieve those things with more confidence. The underlying message or theme in my programming, and probably yours is as well, is just GPP. So being ready to do anything, and that equates to me being able to do my job with confidence that I'm not going to get hurt, and that I can help all my brothers and sisters on the fire department should they need it. But like right now I'm focusing on, we're calling it time on your feet. And basically the idea is to come into the summer ready to, roll into hiking, backpacking, and then into the fall with, the ankle, knee, and hip stability that you could pack out a big ass elk or a deer or something like that. And
so what are you doing for that? So are you adding in steps, or are you doing morning rucks, or how is that?
Yeah, good question. So I do believe I think that rucking is a great exercise that everybody can add. And we've done rucking mesocycles in the past. But this one, we're actually doing some light running. And there's a squat cycle that we're in the middle of that's very interesting. It's based on some of the science that's proven to increase testosterone levels. And it's manageable too. So it's not maximal. It's very sub-maximal, but we do it on an interval and in reps and sets that have proven to increase testosterone the highest. And
so about that, so I had a gentleman yesterday, and he had partially tore his bicep, and so he was avoiding all exercise, period. And I recommended to him either to use a safety squat bar or to utilize a barbell if he could get that range of motion without any pain, right? But safety squat bar is a great option.
Yeah.
And stimulate muscle growth in the legs to kind of produce overall testosterone benefits across the board. I mean, are you seeing that same thing? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Like utilizing these big movers down here? Because I think we neglect them sometimes as a society, especially guys, because they don't look as good in the mirror.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and frankly, a lot of us, get stuck into the idea of a number too. So, the sets and reps that we're doing is 6x10. So, 6 sets of 10 reps, and we just go up 10 to 20 pounds based on feel. You can even repeat the same weight the following week, if you felt like you were overly sore with that stimulus that you gave yourself in the previous workout. But like I started at 155. So I did 6 sets of 10 reps at 155 on the 3 minutes. So you do 18 minutes of basically squatting.
Yeah.
And my recommendation for people is like, hey, if you're not sore from this, then you can go up 20 pounds. If you're mildly sore, then just go up 10 pounds. Or if you're crippled, just repeat that same weight. So we're going to do 8 total workouts of this. And the idea is that, that last workout, you should probably be close to failure on the 5th and 6th set of 10. But one of the things that's been researched is that your testosterone levels actually go down in response to failure. So the goal is to complete all 10 reps and therefore choose a conservative weight for those sets. And, that's just one part of this whole thing. We do hip stability exercises, knee stability exercises, and ankle stability exercises. And this all kind of equates to this time on your feet concept that we're working on up until April. So I'm really excited about it. One thing that I'd like to pass on is that one thing I've kind of put together over the years that I think is really beneficial is that feeling of the pump, right? So we've always kind of heard Arnold.
Yeah.
So that's your muscles kind of being engorged with blood, and it feels good to feel like that. Well, that feeling, we should chase that, because I'm sure you've heard of blood flow restriction bands. Have you ever used those?
Yep.
Yeah.
I have used them, and there's actually some newer technology ones that came out that Kelly referred me to.
Okay.
So
yeah. Hugely beneficial, especially if you're coming back from an injury, because it allows you to use light weights, but get that same idea of trapping blood in, your upper or lower extremities. And as it turns out, the science behind that shows that, that pressure, it increases growth hormone secretion. So, I think CrossFitters have generally done this naturally through high repetitions, where you feel that burn, and it's hard to feel comfortable after an exercise where your quads are ready to explode, or whether your arms and lats are ready to explode. So I
want to hear more about. I'm pulling up a video of this guy Hani, because he had me do exactly what you're talking about. But keep sharing about. So for you, that kind of pump. What types of things are you doing? Or you? Because that 6 sets of 10, you're definitely getting a pump for sure.
Exactly. That's where I was going with this. Is that I like from time to time when we are going for hypertrophy rep ranges, which 6 sets of 10 is obviously a hypertrophy set. That feeling of your muscles feeling full of blood is what you're kind of after, because that can stimulate a growth hormone response. And growth hormone, without taking supplements, if you will, is a great thing for your body to have in it, as for recovery and for growth.
So I wanted to show you this video because I was training with Hani Rambod the other day. So he was having me do, for those of you listening, I was doing this like bench press and different types of machines. I'd start off kind of heavy. Then basically he had me do like halves. But then what he had me do right here is he actually had me hold the position. So the way it was imagine you did bench press, push-ups, hold.
Look at the triceps on this guy.
Oh my gosh. I was so pumped right there. But it back and I'd start cramping. I was so pumped, right? Yep. And so we trained for a while. He's actually out of my area. I train with like this, high level guy, but it just goes to show that I think in CrossFit traditionally, in the back in the day, you never talked about the pump, but I think there is some value there. And in particular, when you talk about growth hormones and testosterone production, it's interesting to have that conversation. So thanks for sharing that, Matt.
Well, yeah. And, guys that are my age and Louise's age that was, commenting earlier, I think we have to focus on that stuff more often because, especially when you have limited sleep, which is where you can really optimize your, manly hormone secretion. That's what you need to do is you need to optimize everything in your life so that you can extend that outwards without taking additional supplements.
Yeah. Hey, Luis asked, his whole family was watching the, Titan Games. Anything happened behind the scenes that like kind of, was shocking or something maybe you weren't expecting? Got any good drama for us?
Drama.
Or maybe not drama, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't, not really. I think, we were all pretty civil with each other. About one of the fun things that we did was we would get trapped in this room together, this green room, and we had to pass time because we're just sitting there, not allowed to leave it without a chaperone. So we played Heads Up constantly. That game, that app on the phone.
Yeah. The one where you put it on your phone, like that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was good. It was, those guys were all great people. I have nothing but positive things to say about all of them. They were just pleasant people to be around.
Love it, man. So, kind of closing in here. M asked, do either of you train any MMA disciplines? Yes, I do. I particularly spend a lot of time rolling jiu-jitsu. I know Matt has dabbled in it, or actually you've done it. Not even dabbled. You've been doing it too, right?
Yeah, I'm only a 2-stripe blue belt, but what am I talking
about? Yeah, no,
I'm sorry. I'm a 2-stripe white belt. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, you've definitely been doing it enough to know,
Yeah.
And so you train now. Have you ever done striking or stand up before, or have you primarily just done jiu-jitsu and groundwork?
No, I did a little boxing back in the day, but not in a long time. But again, it's just, Jay, it's like you got to pick how much time you have, right? I mean, I would love to do more MMA, but it's just, it's 15 minutes down to the gym. It's an hour in the class. It's another 15 minutes back. And then what are you going to do? You're not going to work out too? Oh, I got to add that in there. And something's got to give at some point. And frankly, that's what happened with MMA. And my experience was just I had to just put it on pause because there was just not enough time in the week.
Yeah, I think that realization I think is really important because, like, for me, it's like, okay, I want to get good jiu-jitsu. Okay, well, I also want to get good at striking and do Muay Thai. Well, you can't do everything because what was happening with me, at least, is when I was trying to really get into Muay Thai, I was also really trying to get into CrossFit. And the problem was that I would only go to Muay Thai maybe once or twice a week tops, and I'd spar with people and just get my ass kicked because I didn't have enough time getting exposure. Right? I wasn't developing skills and picking and choosing what you want to do from that type of thing, I think is important because every day I'm going to get in my fitness, but there's other things. If you want to develop like the brain side, you got to develop the technique, and technique doesn't happen overnight, as you know, right? It takes time.
Every time I'd go in there, I felt like I was relearning the same stuff for the first time, and it was actually more frustrating than it was fun for me because of that. I think it's just because I'm one of those competitive people that wants to always be advancing. I felt like I was just stuck in the mud with jiu-jitsu. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. But the big thing for me was I started to notice that my shoulders and knees were hurting more. And at the time I was training for a ski race, and I couldn't afford for my knees to get messed up for that. So I put it on pause, and frankly, I haven't gone back since, but definitely love it. And I love watching you.
We're getting you back in there. Yeah. Well, hey, as we come up to the, wrapping this thing up, if anybody has any more questions for Mr. Matt Chan, throw them in here. I will be, trying to get guests on, doing these more often. I just like just having these conversations. I love this platform. I am not sponsored or paid by this platform, StreamYard, but man, it is easy. It's fun. You're able to pull up videos and stuff. I pay for their service, just so you guys know. Corey's asking, I know that oxygen plays a big role in actually being able to perform strength and recovery, and big guys like you would be familiar. Yeah, I mean, okay. Yeah, okay. Hey, all right, perfect. Well, Mr. Chan, what's the big plan going on for this week, man? Anything cool coming up that we should know about?
Oh man, went skiing with the nieces yesterday.
Hell yeah!
It was kind of fun. I've got 2 nieces, and Sri and I and my sister went out and hit Winter Park Resort and watched them on their skis, and it was a whole lot of fun. And went down some too steep of a runs for some of them, so I ended up skiing, carrying them and stuff like that. So,
Oh, did you really?
yeah, you know how that goes. But
Dude,
we're
but
gonna.
how old are they?
I believe 7 and 5.
Oh,
And
so okay, so yeah, so you tried to hit a little black diamond, had to
yeah,
carry them, huh?
well, I mean, it was only green, but it was still too steep of a green for them. You know, you just got to test the waters, though, right? You know, you never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the plan. You know, this week is Sheree and I are gonna head out tomorrow and do some backcountry skiing. We've got this really cool trip planned a little later in the year. In April, we're skiing from Chamonix, France to Zermatt, Switzerland. It's a roughly 50-mile route called the Haut route.
15 or 50?
50. And we're
You're
doing it.
skiing it?
Yeah. It's
How does that even work? Like, I mean, look, yeah, now I'm really interested.
So, you know, it's basically on the crest of the Alps, and you have specialized equipment that you can ski both uphill and downhill with. And it's, you know, a pretty simple process. When you hear about backcountry skiing, it's the same equipment. So, you know, you have to mitigate avalanche hazards and all that stuff. But the reason you go in April is because most of the snow stability issues are stabilized by that point. And it's a much safer time of year to go do it. And you get the benefit of also having, you know, great bluebird days where the sun's shining. And we're going with a group of about 8 people. Rory McKernan's going with us.
Yeah.
And it should be a lot of fun. And I think that's what we're, you know, I mentioned those mesocycles. That's kind of what that time on your feet thing is for me, is to be ready for, you know, spending 6 days skiing in the backcountry in Europe. And it's a lifelong dream of mine to do this route. And we are actually going to pull it off this year. So,
dude, well, I want to stay tuned on your training. I definitely want to talk to you more about how that goes. Before we close up the show, Ryan did have a question. Hey, Matt, any advice for a guy that's looking to start the academy for his first firefighter job here in about 3 weeks?
Yeah. Okay. Don't get hurt. Number one, it'd be really embarrassing to show up with a cast on or something like that. So take it easy. Make sure that you enjoy your last 3 weeks of freedom before you are committed to early mornings and late nights studying. It's a very difficult process. I'm assuming it's probably 16 weeks for you. Just, bro, do your best and just realize that you're only a rookie once, and it's going to take you 12 months to shed that probationary flag off your shoulder and enjoy every moment while you can and soak up the knowledge that you can. Don't be a know-it-all at any point in time. Just go out there and soak it all up.
Love it, man. Well, Matt, where can people find if they want to, you know, dive into more of your programs, your mesocycles, you know, what's going on with you?
Yeah, thanks. You know, we have a company called Train for the Win. The program's called Thrive. I am ultra engaged in communicating with people on that, whether it's video coaching or just comments on a daily basis, getting back and forth with people. It's only $20 a month. It's super cool. So check that out at trainftw.com. And then reach out to me at Matt1Chan on Instagram. I love chatting with people.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Looking forward to doing this again. This is a lot of fun. And, you know, Matt always has a lot of great information. He definitely hits it from a bunch of different angles. I love talking to you. So thanks for taking the time. And
yeah, same to you,
be in touch
Jason.
soon, huh?
Yeah.
All right. See you guys.
All right.